Today I'm going to talk about how to avoid run-ons and fragments in your writing. A lot of people feel that they have mastered the art of writing a good sentence, but I can tell you that as an English teacher, it's something that I'd say probably the majority of people struggle with. So see this as kind of a refresher course on run-ons and fragments. So every sentence, to be a complete sentence, has to have three things. It has to have a subject, a verb, and a complete thought. If it's lacking one of those three things, then what you're looking at is actually a fragment, not a sentence. So let me give you some examples. Let's see. Okay. The man on the sofa. Okay. Is that a sentence, or is it a fragment? Well, you can look for the subject. Man is the subject, okay? Then you look for a verb. The man on the sofa, there's no verb there, okay? The on the sofa is a prepositional phrase. There's no verb, and there's also not a complete thought. The man on the sofa, what? Okay, it doesn't complete the thought. So that's a fragment. A lot of people understand and can recognize a fragment, but not so many people can recognize when what they have is a run-on sentence. So I want to go on to that next. Okay. So let's say you have this. The sun is high. Put on some sunscreen. Okay, so now we need to look at this, and we need to, first of all, see if we can identify these three things. Okay, that's how you start, to make sure that you're not including run-ons in your writing. So, the sun is high, put on some sunscreen. Okay, the sun is the subject, is your verb, okay? It's a linking verb. Sun is what? High. It's a complete thought. So right here, you already have a complete sentence, okay? Let's look at this next bit. Put on some sunscreen, okay? So, put, it's actually, you is understood here, right? Because they're saying you put on some sunscreen. Okay, so that means that there's an understood you as the subject. Where's the verb? Here, put. Is it a complete thought? Put on what? Put on some sunscreen. Yes, it is a complete thought. So now you have another complete sentence here. Put on some sunscreen is the second one. Okay, good. You have two complete sentences, all right? Neither one is a fragment. But what's the problem? Well, you have no punctuation in here. Sometimes I'll see a student putting in a comma there. Is that okay? Is it all right to put a comma? Does that make it acceptable? When you have two complete sentences, no. You have to have end mark punctuation. So that is why you have to have a period there, and therefore this would then be capitalized. That would be correct, okay? The sun is high, period. Put on some sunscreen, period. Both have subject, verb, complete thoughts, and if they're being joined, they have to have some form of end mark punctuation. So whether it's a period, whether it's an exclamation point or a question mark, depending on what you're saying, it has to be end mark punctuation. Semicolons can also work, But that might be a lesson for another time, because people can get kind of semicolon happy and use semicolons when they're really not appropriate. There's kind of a very specific time when semicolons are appropriate. So that's probably a lesson for another day. So generally, it's going to be comma, exclamation point, or question mark there. All right, let's look at another example. The sun is high, so put on some sunscreen. Okay, so it's very similar, okay, and it has a comma, so you might say, oh, that's not correct, it doesn't have end mark punctuation. But what does this have that the other example didn't have? It has a so, okay? So is working as a transitional word there. And so in this case, this is correct. If you have a transitional word there, then you may have the comma, and then it works, okay? So you could also have something like therefore, okay? And that would work. Let's look at another example. If the sun is hot, you should put on some sunscreen. Okay. If the sun is hot, and you could have a comma there, you should put on some sunscreen. Okay, so let's look. If the sun is hot, is this a complete sentence? You have sun, that's a subject. Looks like it's a subject, right? Is, it'd be a linking verb. But is it a complete thought, if the sun is hot? No. So that is not a complete sentence, all right? It's actually, it's a clause, or if you had it by itself with an end mark punctuation, it would be a fragment. You should put on some sunscreen. Is that a complete sentence? You have your subject, you have your verb, should put, okay? Is it a complete thought? You should put on some sunscreen. Yes, it can stand on its own. It's a complete thought. So you have here a clause joined with a complete sentence. Is this acceptable? Should you have an end mark punctuation in this case? No, okay, because this is not a complete sentence, so the comma works. Again, if this was a complete sentence and this was a complete sentence, you'd have to have your end mark punctuation, or else you'd have a run-on. And that's what I think a lot of people struggle with. So you have to actually become pretty good at taking the time to identify your subject, verbs, and complete thoughts, so that you can tell, do I actually have two sentences here that are being combined? And if they are, they either need a transitional word, like sometimes an and, or because, or however, which I can give some examples of those, or it needs end mark punctuation. So let me give you just another example where it's joined with a transitional word. Mr. Smith has sent four children to college, comma, however, he has health to do so. Let's take a look at that. Mr. Smith has sent 4 children to college. Is that a complete sentence? Mr. Smith is your subject. Has sent is your verb. Mr. Smith has sent 4 children to college. Is that a complete thought? Yes. Okay, so this is actually an independent clause. It could stand on its own. Okay, let's ignore this because you can tell that this is a transitional word. He has sacrificed his health to do so. He would be your subject. Has sacrificed, okay, would be your verb. Is it a complete thought? He has sacrificed his health to do so. Yes. So you have 2 complete sentences being joined, also called independent clauses. Being joined, and right now you're not seeing any end mark punctuation there, but what you are seeing is your transitional word, however. So this is correct, okay? You could, instead of having a however, you could make them 2 sentences. Mr. Smith has sent 4 children to college. And then you would need to capitalize this. So you put your period here and capitalize this. He has sacrificed his health to do so. You could do that, but you see how the however makes it flow more smoothly and connects them appropriately, connects the 2 thoughts together. So this is just a quick review of fragments and run-ons, and maybe next time we can talk about appropriate use of semicolons. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.